Wow, that was so strange. Okay, so now I just put out another. Okay, I just put out another stream. See if we're getting anybody. I gotta make Jake a new link. So if people are showing up, it's I'm just making a new link for Jake because we were on for like 4 minutes and got nobody. So let me go ahead and remake this link. That stinks, right? Okay. Okay, so now people are showing up. We were live for like 5 minutes. Good thing I didn't have Jake on yet. How you doing, guys? God bless. I'm gonna send Jake the new all right, all right. Let me send Jake the new Oh wow. And you know what? If I had a smooth day, then I don't know what to do, to be honest. All that all that I was talking about 4 minutes long, right? Will just be the goofiest video. But if I wasn't dead to myself, I am now. So I feel better. Okay, Jake is back there. I'm gonna bring Jake on. Okay. Okay, is it better now? Is it better now? As soon as I get thumbs up, I'm gonna go ahead and let Jake come on. Thumbs up or a 5x5 or a yes if you can hear me, if it's better. Man, we are going through some attacks today, it seems like, huh? It's okay. We'll persevere. If the devil keeps this up, I'll stay on 3 hours. All right, let me know if you can hear me. And as soon as I get a yes, I'm gonna let Jake on. Okay, we're good. We're good to go. All right. Hello, Jake. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, Steven, good to be here, man. I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. We have okay. So in the chat, there's probably a little bit of a delay. So if you see some chat, some chats that don't line up to what you're saying, uh, you know, it's probably behind like I don't know, 10 seconds. And
Okay, no worries. You'll have to let me know. I don't have the chat open on my phone right now, so I
uh,
won't see that.
that's the best
But
way to do it.
hey, I'm glad I'm not talking with Mr. Roboto.
Oh, I know. Well, okay, so check this out, right? So I made the yeah, I know the feed is going a little bit slow, but it's all right. It's all right. Sorry, she was texting me. All right, so yeah, I made the other broadcast, right? And then I gave you the link, and then when I went on, I was on for like four. You probably heard me the whole 4 minutes, and
I know it was just us in the show. I'm like, hey, Steven, I guess everybody got raptured. It's just you and I now.
I know, but hey, I used to joke with my brother about that. I'm like, hey, man, after the rapture, could you get my mail, and make sure
Oh
that
man,
make sure that the lawn is
that's a
mowed, like he's gonna be
oh
here and I'm gonna be
that's
gone or
a
something.
that's a sick joke.
That's very sick. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
that's
I'm
awesome.
gonna need you to feed my cat. I'm gonna need,
Yeah.
and so
That's awesome.
yeah. So I mean, it was kind of weird to have zero people after that long. I wonder even now if there was any alerts went out because it was just Brian and Stephanie was in here. I don't even
Oh
know how
wow.
this is, and I figured they were probably, there when it started, right? So, man, it's concerning. But I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, if the devil wants to work on us, then I'll just have to stay live all night long. All right,
I
now
love
we're
what you
getting more
said. That's
people.
we just keep charging through. That's right.
Well, hey, look, because that what is so it's everything's inverted, right? This is my thinking. I'm not like, well, that's not my thinking. That I know, but my thinking is that like if they want you to do one thing, you just do the other thing. You know what I mean?
Oh man, that is so
Remember
true.
that
You know,
episode of Seinfeld
it's
when George did that?
you might I never actually watched much of that. My parents watched it a lot, but I didn't watch that show much at all, so I can't relate. I finally just finished Little House on the Prairie and caught up on that, so I'm a little behind.
so like so like on that episode, right? I probably shouldn't even talk about Seinfeld, but on that episode, right? Like George is like Jerry's like loser friend, you know, like he never has a job, no girlfriend, lives with his parents, that kind of thing. And he had one episode where he did the opposite of everything. He got hired by the Yankees. He was like, he got his own place, right? Like, I mean, everything like worked out opposite for him, you know? And so, yeah, it
Oh,
goes
that's
to show
funny.
you this inverted world, you know?
You know, it's funny and it is so true and it shows like I think the interesting thing about evil and Steffi and I were just talking about this the other day, but it also shows what God is not, you know, because it's the opposite. And it was just kind of we asked the question like if we were born like into like if we were just born into heaven so to speak or like where there was no evil or was no bad, you know, like well I guess number one we wouldn't have free will because we couldn't choose bad, but would we even know that it was good or like would we even know what love is if that didn't even exist, you know, or the choice to choose anything else if we were just programmed or designed to love, you know, it would even be like a relationship at that point because we would have no choice.
I
And so
wonder,
it's
because
amazing how
like a lot of people make that argument, right? Like they're like, okay, without bad, you can't have good, or and so like I was always thinking about that, right? Because like it brings up an interesting point, right? Is it a lot of these like Luciferian like religions, right, are like yin and yang, you know, equal opposites kind of thing. And I always get this impression with God, right? And I could be like way off, right? But that like because there's no equal opposite to God, right? Like
yes.
the Satan is like just this little defeated foe, right? That like maybe there is like an all good without knowing about the like you know what I mean? Like with no knowing of the bad, just being all good.
Yeah, like pure innocence. Well, you know, I think yeah, like the trap, of course, like of duality. What I don't believe is that, you know, like light and darkness have coexisted co-eternally, so to speak, you know, because that is totally not the case. Like it's like God is the
Right.
beginning, you know, the beginning was the word,
Sure.
like he is love, like he is the source. And we know what came afterwards, you know, of course, the fall and the fallen angels and whatnot. But yeah, I think that's like the trap in duality is that they're just like it's just an equal balance, the yin and yang thing, you know, that they're just co-equal, which we know is so not true.
Yeah. They want us to think that like there's some kind of like contest up in the air and like we don't know who won yet or something, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Absurd. It's absurd for us to think about that, right? But like people that believe that, you know?
I know.
And
That's so true. And it's yeah, the model of the fallen angels, the deception out there.
yeah,
Amen.
exactly. Well, you know what? I even think like weird stuff like with like, the it's not too weird, I guess, like, with conspiracies and everything, right? You know, being out in California, right? I can't think of a time I
Oh,
regular people, you know, like it's always like they're Hollywood people, and you never see some guy that's like, oh, I was in the movies like Weird Science in the '80s or something, and like I'm trying to cash in on my fame, and I live in like Ohio or something, right? You're
oh,
Hollywood for life, you know,
there.
and
Okay, sorry.
and
It's,
then it's
it's I think
weird,
you're
right?
going Mr. Roboto. Okay, there we go. I think it's coming back. It was cut out a little bit, but I'm getting the gist of what you're saying.
It's weird in the sense that like since there's no like real connection, right? I'm thinking like, are those people even are they different people than us, right? And so when I started to
Mm,
break down, like, okay, Los Angeles, right? The Angels, right? It means the
mm-hmm.
angels, and everyone wants to be a star. I'm gonna be a star, right? There's they hand each other gold trophies, right? Like idols, right? And
Yes.
it keeps getting sicker and sicker, right? And
Right.
you're on the past, you want to be a, and I'm wondering, right? Like, are they like these people, like maybe even Nephilim, right? Related to the angels, that bloodline is very protected, right? And it's only
Yeah.
them that get to be celebrities and politicians, right? I think about that, like,
Mm.
is that the mystery Babylon, right? Is that where they are?
That's yeah, that's such a fascinating topic, right? And it's like it says somewhere in the book of Jude that they're like what they do, they basically do evil naturally because it's just kind of like who they are, and of course we know it's after the fallen
Yeah.
angels and whatnot, but yeah, like the mystery of Babylon is such an interesting topic, right? Because it's like when I think of
Oh
like
yeah,
that and
could
like the
be a lot of
harlot,
things.
it's all about like all idolatry, right? Because a harlot is a prostitute out there going after other lovers, and ultimately everything is against God, and against serving Him,
Yeah.
and so one of the fascinating things for me is trying to like, especially when looking at eschatology and looking at these things, is looking at like the first time it appears or like when it began in the Bible. And I think you mentioned Brenda Weltner before, if that's her, or is that her?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
she does some really good studies. But anyways, she brought up
Yeah,
such a
I've
good
watched
point
her a
about
few
that.
times.
Like even understand the harlot, like looking back at the past and the first time it began. And of course we know it almost came to full fruition in Genesis 10 with Nimrod, and the Tower of Babel and whatnot, with
Right.
this, this trying to roll out this universal religion. And, that's played out in so many cycles throughout history. And of course, it kind of built up again with Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel and Babylon there. And then, of course, we know in Revelation, it's going to be like come to full fruition on a global scale. And and it's so interesting. And I'm still learning so much about it. Um, but I think, yeah, it's like when you look at religion, it's just it's all just completely it's the opposite of God, like we were talking about in the beginning. It's just a complete idolatry, and that's what ultimately what Satan wants is to attack our love and tap into that and try to get you to focus on other gods or other things, which ultimately will lead to him eventually.
Well, and see, like, I think that there's a lot of people, right? They, like, if they don't read the Bible a lot, right? They want to make it all good here. It's almost like that desire to have Babylon be built, right? Because it's like the
Mm.
promise of things getting better here, and the danger of that, right, is because right where we're at now, Jake, it's just such a door for the Antichrist, right? To finally complete
Yes.
it, bring the one world back like it was with Nimrod, and
Right.
uh, and then there's going to be a lot of people deceived by that. They're going to say, "Oh yeah, like it's not the end times. Things are great, Like this guy is coming in, he's really cleaning everything up, and it's not like I ever want to talk about doom and gloom, right? I don't. But like to me, I don't ever see it as that, right? I'm like, if I'm talking about Jesus
Absolutely.
coming back, I'm like,
Yes.
there's no end of the world. We just move on without all the stuff, all the
Right.
goofiness, right? And
Amen.
so,
That's so true.
you know what I mean? And I just want to like put that out there because, the whole thing is a conspiracy to to build this one world government, right? I mean, that's what the
Yeah.
Bible is basically, right? It's how many times they're going to try this, right? And you brought up so
Right.
many good points there, right? Like, and so now we're at the maybe the crescendo, who knows, right? And
Uh, you
because
know,
I
I
think
think.
because I think this is my question. So I think about it like this, right? Like I know that it's the end times in my heart, but I start applying it to other times, like, okay, what about in the 40s, man? What about in the 30s? We had a market crash. We had that guy in Germany, right? Like, there was a lot of things lining up, like crazy then, too. And it's like,
Right.
I wonder, because these things do come in cycles, right? You do see them all
Yes.
together, like Spanish flu, some kind of a crash, and then, uh, you know,
Right.
wars or whatever, right? So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I put a lot
Yeah,
of meat on the bone there.
it is such a yeah, it's such an interesting topic, right? Because that question comes up a lot too. Like, well, hey, everybody's always thought we're in the end times, or there's always been wars, and there's been pestilences in the past, and and so of course, the question is, how can we know that we're in the end times now? And one of the things I always ask is if Jesus, like, he literally commands us like to watch, or else I will come upon you like a thief, which he's clearly telling us like there are signs we can see, there are things that we can know, and we can know that we're in the season, you know, not the day or the hour, of course, but that we are there because we see these birth pains, you know, we see it intensifying, and just like a birth in contraptions, it's building up. And so I always think, you know, to people that thought, oh, you know, everybody's always thought we're in the end times, you know, since Jesus was crucified. Technically, I think they were all correct. Like, I think that is when the last times were, or the end times were set in motion, but it's ramping up like birth pains. And of course, we know it comes in its final form at the end, and what I believe, I think, inevitably a 7 year tribulation where a lot unfolds within that. And I think one of the huge things to recognize, of course, like the big topic that's talked about with the mark of the beast and with Revelation 13, is that this is going to be on a global scale, you know, and it's going to be worldwide with every nation, kindred, and tongue. You know, when the mark comes out and all nations are deceived by this man of sin, that's a global thing. And I
Great
think
point.
technology, now that we can see that happening, you know, it's never been there in the past, well, that we know about, of course, but um, we can see that come into fruition, you know, because Satan, of course, wants to be the false god and the false all-seeing eye, and so he's doing this through so many different ways, through technology, of course, and so you can see how it's coming to pass that it can be set up in such a way that you can't buy, sell, or trade unless you take the mark, you know, and how artificial intelligence can play a huge part of that. Um,
Oh
and
yeah,
so and so you can see all that tying in so many ways. And you know, and so when it comes to all these signs, and I think one of the other big ones is the Revelation 12 sign that happened in
that's
2017
right.
in
Yeah,
the sky, you know. And so I think, like, if we ask the question, like, how do we know we're in the end times, it's like just like what you said, like, what does the Word of God say, you know? And if
yeah.
Jesus tells us to watch, like, let's watch. Like, what are the signs? Like, let's get into the Word. Let's understand this. And as we start looking at these things and we start moving forward, um, I think that's where you know, we get so much joy because we know that Jesus has overcome the world. Like he says, "Be of good cheer, like I have overcome the world," you know, and he is our blessed hope. And we know that he's coming back and he's going to restore this kingdom. And so that's where, in an interesting way, you know, like how you brought up Revelation and doom and gloom, it
Not
it
to
really
me though.
isn't, because
I
you
love it.
you it absolutely right, because you die to this world, and we know that we're in this world but not of this world. Like, this world's not our home, right? And so
Yeah.
when we're watching and looking for these signs, our hope is placed in Christ, and for him to come back, and the kingdom being restored, right? And so uh and so it's so important to depart from her lest you take part of her sins, like you talked about in previous shows, and to not let these idols latch onto our heart, right? Because our joy is not in this world, but it's in Him. And so I think watching is such an important thing, and just to be ready and be prepared, and be study together, you know. And
I think
as it gets
you.
closer and closer, by God's grace, He'll unlock things and allow us to see.
I think you made two good points, right? With the Revelation 12 sign, right? Uh, that does give us a clear indication, right? And then also, like with even with the jab, right, which could come with some kind of a you know something with the AI or whatever. I gotta be careful how I
Yeah,
talk because of YouTube, but
right.
every man free and bond worldwide, it marking the skin, right? And that's like a
Yes,
possibility now, right? Like now there are things that like fit that description, right? And like you said, right,
yes,
which made me kind of do an aha moment was AI, right? I didn't think about. I thought about the financial part of it, and I thought
hmm,
about okay, well, if you need maybe some kind of ID to show that you've been like toxinated or whatever. And
yeah,
so like I'm like, okay, I see that, but now like what you just mentioned AI and it puts it together like like
hmm,
AI will have your like bio fingerprint. Like it'll know how many heartbeats a minute you have, what you
yes,
look at on your phone. Like I mean everything, right? And so with AI, right, it could really literally stop you from. They can turn you off, and
right.
it's
They
over,
could,
right? Because you won't be able to buy or sell anything at that point.
yeah,
It knows so
exactly.
much. How does it learn so fast, right?
Oh
It, it's
man,
it's
and
it's
that's where
it's it's crazy, right?
Yeah, like it's exponential. You know, and you can kind of see that going hand in hand with like how AI is exponential, but also like when Jesus says, unless time will be shortened, even the very elect will be deceived. You know, so for our sakes, like time will be shortened, and I just it just feels like, oh my gosh, like even just these past few years, it's like everything is changing at such a fast rate where like every month feels like a new dynamic. You know, and I feel like
Yeah,
uh the more technology evolves, and of course, you know, behind that is Satan and the powers that be that are running ruling behind the scenes. It's like uh, the more I recognize this earth isn't my home, and we know that as believers. You know, like this is not the natural way. This isn't what God intended, of course, and you can just totally see with AI how it's tapping into that classic trick from the garden. Hey, you know, you can be like God, you can be all knowing, and that's the tempting part of AI, right? Like, wow,
right,
look at what we can accomplish as humans, and I can become superhuman, and you know, maybe I can, like the Matrix, I can download kung fu and download a language or whatever the case, you know,
wow,
and so I just really feel like as we're making that as the world's like making that conscious shift towards AI, you know, and it's been gradually happening, you know, and even just the way we're tapped into our smartphones, and it's such a black and white input output mentality. You know, it's like even though we have more knowledge, we're less intelligent because we don't have to think, right? Because the AI is doing the
right.
work, and so it's like the further that progresses, it's like the more I just in a weird way, it just it also makes God's creation stand out in such a unique way to like even just to hear the birds, just to see the flowers, just to see the colors, like his beauty still just shines through it all, you know.
Right.
And it's just and we know we're getting close and so it's just yeah, we are
Well,
just,
see,
you
you
know,
like
this is not our home.
now you've all kind of. I should have kind of made these connections before, but you've kind of opened this up now. Where now I always pictured like, okay, you got a chip in your head, you're connected to the internet, you know all the stuff or whatever, right? But like, but really, if it's exponential, and so basically there'll be something created way beyond farther than we could ever create as human beings, right? With this AI, right? And then it'll be like the internet, like, I mean, I mean, the internet is like you know what I mean? Is a bad, I
Yes.
mean, not even a good word to say it. It'll be tremendous what this thing is going to be, and people are going to plug into it, and
Right. You know.
they're and like you said, right? And I was trying to explain this with medicine the other day, but like if you give somebody a wheelchair and tell them that they need it, and then you take away the wheelchair, they have to learn how to walk again, you know? And it's like
Mm,
when you have that much benefit, right? That much knowledge, that much all you're plugging in, right? But you become weaker as a person, right? Like
yeah.
you become weaker because you're not doing all that work for yourself. And then not only
Yes.
that, right? And then and not only that, but these things can't empathize with you. These things can't uh, share hurt with you or share joy with you. These things are not life. It's not
It's
God's creation, you know?
No, it's not the living God. Like it is manufactured. It's not real. You know, it's artificial and of course we can see the next big push with I don't know if I'm gonna flag you or not for saying this. I will say Meta space XY7 verse or whatever if that even works, but um,
Right.
just so I don't flag you. But you know, with this new direction of VR, how with the whole C, V, and climate, you know, change. Okay, I don't know if these words are going to
Yeah,
trigger,
yeah, you
so
could say
forgive me
climate
if I.
change. Yeah, you could say
Okay,
climate
cool.
change.
So you can see how this marries together so well and how they want you to get comfortable and connected and how they're conditioning us to not leaving the house and going in such a short distance and starting to go to that virtual world, you know, as we interface more and more with it, which of course ultimately they want to build up to the conscious merge, you know, the whole singularity thing and that they're pressing towards. Um, and yeah, it's exponential, which is and you know this is
Wow,
and it's just my opinion, of
singularity.
course,
So, what do
but
you think of? Sorry about that. I don't mean to cut you off, but what do you think of singularity? Like, what is that? You know, so we can understand it. You know.
you know when I when we hear oh man, it's so funny actually because what I was just gonna say actually kind of ties in with your question. So this is okay,
Yeah. Okay.
because in Revelation 13 we know that the false prophet or the beast, the Antichrist, that he causes all to worship the image of the beast, right? And like, and if you don't worship it, and he causes, those will die that don't worship the image of the beast, and but life is given to it that it might speak. So in other words, this thing, it didn't wasn't alive, it's not real, it was created, and life was given to it. I think artificial intelligence could possibly be that. And when you think about singularity and man merging with machine, our conscious merging with it, whatever that looks like, right? Like that is the opposite of the image of God. Like when you think about just how beautifully we were fearfully and wonderfully made, just the organic, just the natural process. You just think about the garden, just how special it all is, and you think about this artificial intelligence junk that Satan's all created and manipulated with God's creation, because he's not a creator, he's a manipulator. Um,
Right.
you
And he
can
uses
see
us,
how
right?
it's he
Yeah.
wants to conform people, yes, use us as tools more and more into the image of the beast, not the image of God. And I just feel like as like as the artificial intelligence is exponentially increasing, it's like people are kind of conforming gradually more and more to the image of the beast, uh, being less like the image of God, of course, because it just is such a spiritual depravity, because it's like the ultimate lust of the flesh, and you can just see how desensitized people are coming now, with entertainment, with video games, music, and now, of course, virtual reality. It's such a desensitization, and just all purely of the flesh, and that's the
Right.
danger, of course, and that's what Satan wants, is to conform people to the image of the beast.
I mean, it's just so crazy because, like, I was just saying, like, even in cartoons, right? Like there's so much adult content and like so much over sexualization, even in cartoons, right? Where there's always some kind of like pervert character, like that's okay now, right? To have like Herbert the
Oh,
pervert or something, right?
I
And like
know.
this is like
Yes.
a, I mean, like this is a character on a kid show, right? Or like maybe that's not a kid show, but
Yeah.
there's always one on some, always some weirdo, right? Or Mr.
Right.
McFeely, or like Mr. Rogers. Like, why is he named
Oh,
that? Like, come on, man. Like things we didn't
oh,
put together maybe back then, but like now it's like, oh, the Reading
right.
Rainbow, right? Like
Yes.
all these things that we never put together, but subliminally, right? They mean something now, right? And so it's kind of like these terms like grassy knoll. It makes you think of a certain thing because you don't hear that term that often, right? Well, if they give you these little buzz terms, right, it connects your brain to something they did a long time ago, right? It's insidious,
Mm,
right? And so
mm,
like maybe reading rainbow meant nothing back then, but now it means something totally different. It means like we got drag queens reading to people in libraries right now. Now that
oh,
was never meant to be connected, but it is, right?
yeah.
And maybe it was
Yeah.
meant to be that way. But there's all these different other ways that they connect us, right? Like to
Mm,
other things, right? Like witchcraft
mm,
or like they want to convince us that like the people were living to like 40 years old back in the day and dying of measles, and because of like modern medicine we lived to 70 or something, and you know what I mean. And it's like they want to turn us absolutely opposite of God.
yes. And that's like that inversion, right? Where evil's going to be good and good's going to be evil, right? Like just like the word says, and we can see it coming to fruition more and more, of course, because it's being normalized. It's being accepted. The stuff that just would have been absolutely an abomination to many 50 years ago now is just so normal, and people don't even blink an eye at a lot of these things happening. The way kids are being sexualized, just
Yeah, it's
the language,
crazy.
even, and that's also, like that's the beauty of the Word of God, right? Because He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, never changes. And that's like that is the Word, like that is the living water that separates us and sets us apart from it. And it's just amazing, like that we are 2,000 years later, and here we are, just following Jesus. We know that He's close and that He's coming back, even in these times, that we can still have a hope, that we can still have a joy, and step outside of the scope of just our generation and kind of look at the overall big picture, seeing how it gradually got here. So we're not desensitized to what the world would call normal, right? So we could step outside of that and be charged by the Word of God and stay true to that. And I think, of course, He's attacking that in so many ways. So uh, us believers are just going to start sticking out like sore thumbs for standing with these morals, standing for Christ and what He stands for with love and forgiveness, and just of course the natural order with gender and all these things. When
Well,
it just
even
becomes
think
totally
about
normal in
this,
the world.
right? Well, even think about this, right? Like the Word of God, right? It's a old book, right? As compared to like an old living book, right? As compared to like a cold machine that's got everything in it, right? Like like it's the inversion of a book, right? Is the ultimate technology thing, right? Then it's so crazy how God will take the smallest thing, right? The least
Yeah.
likely thing, and defeat the biggest thing,
Yes, the foolish things to confound the wise. That's like
Right.
the that is the beauty of God, right? And I think oh gosh, it's so simple, and that is what's so precious, like about God, and we know like the blood of Jesus is so important, and the sacrifice is everything, right? Like that's our salvation, that's our way to the Father. And
Yeah.
now today with entertainment and all these things, it's like there's one of Paul's letters when he says like the cross sounds like is foolishness to those that are perishing, or something right along those lines, right?
The
Like
power,
today it's
the cross, preaching the cross is to the saved, right? The power of God, but to the unsaved, it's a foolishness, right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Right.
And you can so see that with, today with, I don't know, Star Wars or Marvel or whatever, all these shows. It's like we want this epic story, like, all right, we're going on this epic planet. It's going to be this journey. You're going to go in this tomb. There's going to be this ancient script. You're going to battle or whatever the case. And so they
Right.
don't want to hear this, what they would say is some old school story, about the cross. They just, it just, the way the entertainment's just shifted the mind there. And made all this just sound so like silly, the way Satan's got people deceived there.
He does, man. Oh man, like I never even made like that connection before, like a book versus like technology. Like it really is like, oh man, it's so simple, man. And then all these connections, right? Like, I mean, there's no doubt now. Like these are connections, like I knew them, but I didn't put them together yet, right? But it's like I don't think I have a doubt
Mm,
anymore now. Like even though I
yeah,
was kind of saying I didn't have a doubt before, which I felt like there was enough confirmation, and maybe there was some denial in there, like oh maybe not, like but like for real, yes, right. But
yeah,
now, like the way you put it, especially after the Revelation 12 sign, I mean, for that to naturally happen again, right? Um, yeah, forget it.
right. Oh
Yeah.
man, I know, right? And the funny thing too is, talking about technology and all these things, of course, something my dad said that I just loved actually is, you know, all this time spending and building it, and just how advanced getting, whatever, one natural event, God could just wipe it all out, literally. And I think that even just ties with him using the foolish things to confound the wise. Just a simple, it could be one natural disaster, right? Whatever from the sun or whatever he wants to do, a flick of a finger, and all this technology, artificial intelligence, is completely destroyed.
Yeah,
That is the
it
beauty
is.
of it all.
It's insane. It's like just he can speak it, right? Just I mean, he can just speak you gone. I mean, just to know what
Yeah.
God can do to us, like he could pulverize us into like vapor, right? It's so humbling, right? Like he's so
Right.
powerful, and it's so scary, but in a reverent kind of way, because it's his
Yes.
love for us that's keeping us alive. Not
Oh
not not
man.
us, right? I mean, nothing. We have
Amen.
no chance. You know what I
You
mean? We
know,
have no chance. Like
uh,
his love is why
I
we're even here now.
I really feel like, you know, I'm sure you could relate to this, especially us like as believers. Like that moment of like repentance that we have is really like that fear of the Lord, that reverence when you just see how good He is, how powerful He is, how mighty, and you just see
Yeah.
what you are, and yet that He still loves you. There's just something so powerful about that just transforms your heart. Like I love in Revelation 1 when John sees Jesus, because when we think about Jesus, a lot of the, of course, we think about his walk and the crucifixion and what he had to go through. But seeing him glorified, seeing him with his hair, long white wool, eyes like fire, just a long white robe, just and just all of his deity. And John literally just couldn't even stand at his feet. He just falls dead at his feet,
Yeah.
just seeing him in all of his glory. And that just the fact that you
That's
could be so
exciting, dude.
powerful, such yet so humble, so powerful yet so humble and so loving, that just is absolute reverence, and just every part of my being just wants to worship that and wants all of that, and how incredible
Yeah.
that we get to be his children, and
I
that
mean,
we're
even they
grafted
were
into the
saying in the
family
Old
by his grace.
Testament, right? Like in the Old Testament, like when people would see an angel, they'd fall at their feet, like that's how
Yes.
overwhelming just they were, and they were like,
Yeah.
get up, I'm just a servant, like I'm a servant like you. And to
Yeah.
see God in all of his glory, that is going to be amazing, man. I can't do it. It,
Oh.
it. it baffles me, right? Like, okay, the
Yeah.
two things baffle me. One, that people don't just come in droves to like start like giving their lives to God, especially now, right? And
Mhm.
number two is, God was on earth in the flesh, right? And he had 12 disciples, like 12 people, like
Mm.
it should have been millions of people. Like he should, you know what I mean? Like everyone was there to get healed, and everyone was there to get, whatever. Like
Yes.
he was some kind of fortune teller, right, or some kind
Right.
of, magic man or whatever. But no followers, right? You're like, what is going
Yes.
on? Like, what's wrong with these people? And
Yes,
I guess it's hard to say, right?
right, like literally from nothing, right? From Nazareth, of course. I forget who said it. Like, can anything good come from Nazareth, or from absolute
Right.
nothing? Not trying to go for all the fame. And even in the Old Testament, when God revealed Himself, to Moses and the whole burning bush and what happened at Mount Sinai in the desert, in the middle of nowhere. And
Yeah.
and he's not. And I think, you think about that, and actually kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, how we know that evil is what God is not. And you think about the Antichrist and how he's going to deceive people. It's the opposite of that. It's not going to be in love. He's going to get people to follow him. He's going to want to be seen by millions and do all these powerful things and all these signs and wonders and miracles, and people are going to draw to that like a flock. But that is not the Lord our God. You know, these
Right.
things, like he does things in such a way that it's done in love, and in truth.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus was doing when he was here. It wasn't I mean, he absolutely, yes, did miracles, but he did it in love and in truth, and not to make a big name for himself, and to be seen by millions and billions of people, and all these things. He was transforming people on the inside. He was transforming hearts, and externally, people were getting healed as well, of course. Whereas the Antichrist, it's going to be the opposite of that, right? Where sure, he could promise and offer healing and whatever the case, and maybe there's going to be like those medical beds we've seen in movies, where you just go in it and you're cured of every disease.
Right.
Uh, but it's not done in love. It offers nothing for the nothing in the heart, and it just leads to death.
Yeah, and it's just like it's so I mean it's just so amazing, man. And see, like they're always teaching us, right? Like because we are so I always say this, right? We've been lied to so much. We've been fed chemicals, right? We've been like, overstimulated over everything, right? Like in every way, right? And now they got, I bet when the electric lights came out, right now everyone can stay up at night too, right? It was like before you had no choice but to get some rest, right? And it's like they've tried to like see just how far they could push us, right? And how
Yeah.
sick they could make us. And you get to this point where they taught us our whole lives, right? Oh, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, and that kind of thinking, right? Like you don't know what you got till it's gone, kind of stuff, right? To where do you want to take this guarantee right now, right? This fake guarantee with the satanic love, right? Which is like we accept everyone unless you disagree with us. Then you're
Mm-hmm.
not in. No, we don't
That's
want you no
right.
more.
Oh,
you know,
oh,
and
it's
and it's fake, right? But they're
oh my
gonna make
gosh,
it
that's
sound like this is like you better take it now because this is right here in front of you, and that is a
right.
leap of faith, right?
Right. Yes. Yes, exactly. And that's why, like, even it is a religion, and I think that's the deception, right? Like, it doesn't to those that are following that think they're free, and that but it totally is not. That is Satan hiding as an angel of light. That it always looks like he's telling the truth, but really he's not. It's always deceptive. Uh, it makes me wonder how the whole alien narrative's going to play out. There's so many different directions we can go with that, of course, but uh, is it going to be like what you just said? Follow us. This is the new way of life. Otherwise, die. You're going to be destroyed.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as you disagree with us, right? As soon as you disagree with people doing whatever they want in the street, then
Yes,
then forget it, right? And see, the problem is, right? And this is the scary part, right?
of
Is
course.
all these roads, right? All these paths to all these other religions, right? They were basically made at the same time, right? When the Tower of Babel split, right? There's all these religions with their own Messiah type character coming, right? And this is the
Mhm.
guy coming, right? And it's like it's all going to line up and look like, oh yeah, look, see, everybody was right. We all have our own little way. And there's going to be this like remnant of like Christians, that the ones that don't aren't lukewarm and somehow get deceived, right? We're going to be like, no, this is not the guy, right? And we're going to be hated. Like, this guy's
Right.
putting this our whole world back together and you guys are against it. Christians are the worst
Yes.
people on earth. And then like
Oh
one thing
man.
that blew my mind, right, was like in Revelation where it said that we'd be in prison 10 days. I always wondered, like, why 10 days? Like, what does that mean? And then now with like quarantine like times, it's like, oh my God, does that have it maybe not, right? But it opens the door of like, wow,
Right.
they're gonna offer me a
Yeah.
chance to get my mark and my shot, right? And if I don't come out in 10 days and say yes, right, then they're gonna get rid of me. If I don't get raptured out of
Yeah.
here, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. No, that's extremely interesting, and it doesn't, like you said, I mean, who knows? And it's not like it's super far-fetched because we can see all the signs, it's like we can see all the signs, what I feel like of the tribulation looming on the horizon, from the famine to the war, to this system that's it's paving the way for the Antichrist. But I feel like just right now, with this crisis that's happening, and the Civil War, that's pretty much, it seems like it's on the horizon here, is it is going to pave the way for the Antichrist. Like this existing system's just going to fail, and just you can see how it's setting up the scene for the phoenix to rise out of the ashes, so to speak, because that is
Yeah,
is
they
how
have
when
to
he's going to come.
fail.
He's not going to come when everything's fine and dandy and going great, right? Like he's going to come as the savior when people are just ready to latch on to a hope and yearning for something,
That's
and
right.
that's where he can come in and offer
I mean, look
that carrot
at
on
this
a stick.
financial system we're at. If you even just take the economy alone, right? Like everything else, I mean, I can, with what's available now, I can make a lot of end time scenarios out of this, right? But like, just take the finances alone, right? Like, like we're like in debt, like 30 trillion, right? We're up to fractional reserve banking, where the banks are lending out $1 for, I mean, $12 for every one real dollar they have, and they lend it out into debt, right? So it's all into like housing, right? So the home prices are way up, right? And they loan out the money into debt because they're creating the money, right? And if you just create it and put it in circulation, it lowers the value of the other money. So now these people are
Mm,
trying to pay back this money to make up for the money they just made, right? I mean, we're so far out, it has to crash. Like you ever play
yes,
Monopoly where
exactly.
like you have the board crushed and you just kind of like make trades to keep people in the game so they can get around the board one more time. You're like, oh, I'll
That's
give
right.
you this stimulus and this stimulus. You can
Yep.
get around the board
I
one more
always
time,
got
and
the
I'll trick
railroads,
you
man.
again. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And it's like it's
Yeah,
like it's set up. They have to. It
yes.
will break and they will have
It's
it all.
designed. Yes, it's designed to fall. And of course, even with this political system, with the left and the right being two wings of the same bird, again, designed to fall. It's just the illusion of choice, and of course, Satan wants us to buy into this world, or to buy into these man-made labels and fight in that battle, which we're the kingdom of God. We don't fall under any category that man would create. And you can just see, you're right, like inevitably you look at these things and where it's going, it's designed to fall. And we know what that
Yeah.
really means. It's all being set up for that big great fall that we can see happening on so many fronts right now, to just set up that, just paving that path for him to just priming that
Right.
moment for him to come on the scene.
Because
And
the beast doesn't care what side we pick. He wants us on a side, right? Like they're both
yeah.
belong to him, right? And that's the deceptive part, is that there's the dark side and light side of him, right? And that light side is still bad, right?
Yeah,
Even the good guys are bad,
exactly.
right? And so now you're like, well, I mean, good and bad is kind of a bad way to say it, but like, evil has dark and light, right? And so if we
Yes.
pick one of those sides, right, either one, we're doing what they want. And so to
Yes.
separate, right, basically, if we never even talked about the jab, or never talked about the financial stuff, or never talked about the stuff that's going wrong or whatever, we just ignored it completely, right? We would be the same, right?
Mm,
And for us,
yeah.
that works because we don't need to try to gain any status or make anything happen or achieve anything in this world, right? But other people do, right? Or the illusion is that they do, that there's nothing else
Hmm.
after this, that YOLO, you only live once. I mean, like,
Right.
they're thinking, oh, I
Yes.
can't wait for the metaverse so I could live forever. I can't wait to plug into
Oh.
that.
Oh
And
man, yeah, it's
that's
literally
frightening, man.
seeking, yeah, seeking eternal life another way. The things that are eternal are the things that are not seen, and that's what God's building in us, right? Giving us this new foundation as we're getting closer and closer to that revelation of Jesus. We're just being completely transformed in our hearts, and we can feel that in so many different ways. As the pressures rising out there in the world, it's drawing us closer. And it's that separation of the wheat and the tares that Jesus talks about, is that this kingdom's getting built. Those of the beast are just going to cling to it like a flock. And, the invert of that is us, growing together, coming together as his church, ready for the truth, standing for it, and
Yeah,
just keeping our eyes on Jesus, and not letting the love in our hearts wax cold, because that's what
I
Satan
am
wants.
feeling
That's what
like
he
big
wants us to have
confirmation.
offense.
I'm feeling big
Oh,
confirmation in my spirit right now, like that we're all
oh,
coming together, right? Like,
absolutely.
oh my God,
Yes.
man,
I, I, I really feel it.
it's
No,
unbelievable, man.
oh, it just is, you know, and that's like, I think also the beauty out of how the more and more we die to this world, the closer we get to him returning, the more these events escalate, this pressure, it's like, that's what it brings us closer to him, because we are operating more in faith, and it's bringing us closer to him. It's bringing us closer together, and we cannot do this without him. We need him. And so it's giving us that choice to choose him and serve him in faith, and that's the beauty out of all this, what he's really doing, and that's why, like, even with Revelation, again, it doesn't have to be all fearful and doom and gloom. It's the revelation of Jesus Christ, and He is the one that's
Yeah,
opening the seals. This is our Father's plan, and it's going to be ultimately for His glory.
right. And the world wants us to be scared of that, right? When it's just it's Jesus is being revealed to the world. And if
Yes,
there's any kind of like trials or tribulations, right, that are going to happen, right, it's it's designed, right, to bring the most amount of people to their knees to submit to God, right, to save the most
yes,
amount of people. And so
yes,
some people, like, it didn't take much for us to say yes, we want that, right? But for some people, they really have to be broken before they'll say yes, right? And so
oh man, that's so true.
and it's like I mean, it's hard, like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of scenarios I think about in my head. I gotta have you on for another show, man. It's I gotta have you on, you are coming on for sure. It's either, I don't
Oh,
know, like, when the next time you can come on. And
no,
so I want to thank you for coming on, Jake. um
man,
Outstanding, man. Like, you blew my mind, and we're doing this again.
No, thank you so much for having me on, and it's incredible. It feels so right, and it's like what you were saying. Like I think we all really have that confirmation that God is building something here, and we are being drawn close to each other. And the truth is just we can feel it just coming out at us in so many different ways. And Jesus is close, and I am beyond. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited. Like I shared
Amazing.
with you, this feels like home. And so,
Thanks,
praise
brother.
God, this is our church.
Thanks, brother. Well,
Thank you.
guess what time it is? It's time to hit the old dusty trail. And so praise Jesus for his sacrifice and his grace. All glory to God because he deserves it. Pray for the children. Thank you, Jake, again. And God bless you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow at 7 a.m. Love you guys.